Hi, I'm Cynthia Ng, and this episode of Vantage Point, we will be talking about urban public transportation. Now, with billions of taxpayers' money at stake, urban transit planning and construction of rail are often some of the most hotly debated topics among the people. And in Malaysia, major revamp is undergoing under the government transformation program, and we are excited to know how these mega billion projects will help ease our commuting in the future. So with me today, I'd like to thank the NKRA Director for Urban Public Transport, Dato Suhaili Ahmad Idrus, to be here with us today to share some of his thoughts on the transformation that is taking place.
Thank you.
If I may put it bluntly, city folks like myself, like yourself, given a choice, I believe will not choose public transportation as the method of commuting at this moment. Some of the reasons given are unreliability, inefficiency, and comfort and safety as well. But based on your last GTP report, ridership has improved. Can you just tell us more? What does it say based on the GTP 1.0?
Yeah, essentially in terms of the ridership during the phase 1 of the GTP, which runs from 2010 to 2012, in 2011, we registered an increase of about 86,000 more people using public transportation, or equivalent to about 36% compared to the previous year in 2010. However, the public transport modal share took a small dip, about 1%. It came down from 17% to 16%.
What do you mean by modal share?
Okay, modal share means the share of the travelling public using public transport over the total number of travelling public. That means using both public as well as private transportation. So that's what it means. And for the city of Kuala Lumpur, in 2010, the modal share for public transport was 17%, and in 2011 it took a small drop to about 16.4%. And one of the reasons that happened is because the increase of the number of vehicles is very high. In fact, on average, we have 500,000 new vehicles in the country every year. And the total car population of Malaysia is about 11 million, giving us the privilege of having the second highest car per capita population after the United States. Okay, so that is the overview of the statistics.
And we are having 28 million population, and we have 11 million cars on the road.
Which is very high.
It's very high indeed. But under this transformation program, one of the pertinent observations that I made, that we are making a lot of investments, in mega billion investments, for example, the MRT. But I think the key issue here for most people when you talk about reliability, efficiency, comfort, safety is the issue of the last mile. Like for me, commuting from my house to the LRT and the LRT to the office and to get there on time, that I'm still not certain, and I believe most Malaysians who owns a car share a similar sentiment. In regards to that, how are we moving to address last mile issue?
It's a very good question there. In fact, we are looking at both the first mile and the last mile. The first mile is from where you live to the nearest public transport terminal, be it bus stops or LRT terminal or monorail terminal or even KTM station. And the last mile is basically from the respective public transport terminals to your final destination, offices, shopping mall, and so on. So we have done quite a lot in the last 2.5 years in terms of bridging the gap. For example, we have put in more feeder buses in the urban areas to transport people from where they live to the nearest public transport terminal. For example, if you live in Damansara Utama and you want to take the LRT, the nearest is either Taman Bahagia or Kelana Jaya LRT station. There is a Rapid KL feeder bus service there. And last year alone, in 2011, Rapid KL brought in 70 feeder buses which can carry between 25 to 30 passengers. On top of that, they also expanded their fleet of long buses that can carry 45 passengers. So last year, or at least for the last 2.5 years, from 2010 to 2011, they brought in 670 new buses alone. So that's a very big increase. There are other things that we do to ensure that the public have very easy connectivity in the first and the last mile. One is basically to improve or provide a very good pedestrian walkway so that they can walk comfortably. And in fact, in some areas we even cover them and put lighting so that it's very safe, especially for the female travelers in the evenings or at night. And of course, in the plan is also to put in some bicycle route so that people can cycle, because in some countries, if you go to China, for example, in Guangzhou, they have a big place where they rent out bicycles for people to rent the bicycle after they come off from the MRT and then ride on the road and then...
But you think this is a viable option for the average Malaysian, looking at touching on a bit of the safety issue here, and also maybe our weather as well. Yes, we have pedestrian walkways which are covered, but most people wouldn't want to travel more than, say, 500 meters from their homes to the transportation hub.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, I just need to correct what you have just said. In fact, the correct figure is 400 meters. 400
meters, right.
So on average, Malaysians are only prepared to walk not more than 400 meters to the nearest public transport terminal for them to use public transport. If it is longer than that, they probably think twice and they probably drive their cars to where they want to go. So what we have done, one of our key performance indicator is basically by 2015 is to have 75% of the population in any area to live not more than 400 meters away from a public transport terminal. So how do we do this? Is basically we can't change the houses, we can't relocate the houses. We have to build more bus stops. We have to ensure we have very good feeder bus services, because there's no point in having bus stops but no feeder bus to carry people to the transport terminal. We are also improving the taxi service in Klang Valley. So our KPI, another key KPI, is basically by 2015, we want to ensure that 25% of the taxi fleet in Greater KL will meet or exceed the best in class of taxis in Southeast Asia. The more difficult part is to revamp the taxi business model, to provide them with some mobile data terminal so that they can carry passengers within the next 100 meters rather than doing a lot of reconnaissance 3 or 4 kilometers without carrying a single passenger and just burning away fuels in the process. So these are some of the NKRA activities that we plan, which are basically not new. Apart from the taxi, they are a continuation of the first GTP. So when we go into the second GTP, from 2013 to 2015, we will be doing all these new initiatives. Better coverage for residents from public transport terminal, better taxi services and so on.
Well, you mentioned you plan to have 75% of the population live around transportation hubs
within 400
meters.
Yeah.
And my next question will be, what about this possibility of a bigger urban sprawl that we already have now in Kuala Lumpur? But I'll have to take this discussion to the first commercial break. We'll be back shortly and let Dato answer that question. Stay with us. Watching Vantage Point, and we are on the topic of urban public transportation, and on set with me today is Dato Suhaili Idrus. He's the director for the NKRA for Urban Public Transportation. Now, Dato, we seem to misinterpret that public transportation issue is confined to an urban issue. If you look at bus companies, a lot of them are struggling to stay afloat, partly due to rising operating costs, like rising prices of fuel and diesel, and also there is decreasing less people taking the bus. On that financial point of view, bus operators are demanding to increase ticket prices by 40%. And then from the customer's perspective, we are also concerned about the safety issues and stuff. So what can we do to strengthen this bus operating system? Because we can have mega projects like LRT, MRT, but if this bus issue is not tackled, then it kind of defeats the purpose, isn't it?
Right. It's a very good question again. I think we should not confine ourselves to any particular mode of transport, public transport. We should look at the overall transport chain. So from the first mile to the last mile that we discussed just before the break. And I think bus is just one of the components, more important in the last mile into the city, but as well as even in the rural areas, from rural to urban. So on one hand, we are putting in some mega projects like MRT, LRT extension, monorail expansion in KL. We are also working very hard to improve the bus services in Greater KL. Just now I mentioned briefly about Rapid KL, which is owned by Prasarana, having added about 670 new buses in the last 2 years, as well as some 70 feeder buses. One of the things that we are looking at now through SPAD, the Suruhanjaya Pengangkutan Awam Darat, is basically to revamp the bus network in KL. What is happening today, if you observe, some of the popular routes in KL, like Jalan Pahang, Jalan Ipoh, Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman, Jalan Raja Laut, there are more than 2 operators operating, which is a very unhealthy competition, because they are not going to make more money than they thought, because so many buses using giving the same service, so the passengers are being carved out across all. So in return, they don't really increase their ridership. So SPAD is in the process of doing that exercise, and it should be ready by the end of the year. So once they complete that exercise, what we will see is basically rationalization of the operator services in KL, which means for every route that the public requires services, you'll get just the right number of bus operators rather than an oversupply. So, and this is common in all cities. Even when I was in Johor, the Tebrau corridor as well as the Skudai corridor, they are being serviced by 4 or 5 operators, so which is very unprofitable, unhealthy. So these are the things that we are looking into the bus, because bus is a key component, and because they are competing against each other, and they are not making that money, they are losing. The government, through SPAD again, have been providing them the subsidies to make sure they are covering up their costs so that they don't go under and they don't terminate their services like what we have heard in the past in Seremban or in Pahang. So I think SPAD has a good handle on that problem now. But we need to solve the bus problem, and we just want to reassure that through the GTP 1 and even GTP 2, with all the agencies, we are addressing the problems associated with bus, in addition to looking into new projects like MRT and LRT.
I'd like to talk a bit about the integration of MRT, LRT, monorail. How are we making it more seamless in the sense? Are we moving towards the direction at the moment?
Yes, certainly. Again, this is we have to admit it. If we go back into time, we didn't do a good plan. And I think most major cities or metropolis in the world, they always have a very good transport master plan for the country, for the state, for the cities, and even for the district. We didn't have that. So because of that, we are paying the price for not having it earlier. And as a result, all our projects today are
it seems like more ad hoc basis.
So coming back to your specific question in terms of integration, for example, between LRT and monorail, we started that during the first year of the GTP 1 in 2010. So today the projects are completed. The good example I can say is Masjid Jamek. Masjid Jamek is a station whereby LRT Kelana Jaya as well as LRT Ampang service. So before the integration, if you come from Kelana Jaya and you want to hop on the Ampang line, you have to come out, buy a new ticket board. So now you don't have to do that. If you come out from Masjid Jamek today, you don't have to buy the ticket. You can just cross over via an overhead bridge and board the Ampang line to your next destination without having to buy any ticket. So that is LRT to LRT. LRT to monorail, example that we have completed is basically Hang Tuah. So Hang Tuah station is basically an integration of the Ampang line, LRT, plus the monorail. So we are doing this where possible, which means the distances are not far. But in the case of our primary transport hub in Klang Valley, which is KL Central, we spend a lot of money to give a covered walkway from KL Central to Brickfields, where the monorail station is. So for example, if you are using KTM commuter LRT Kelana Jaya and you want to use the monorail, you can now walk with a proper cover against the rain and shine. In the past, you walk in the open sun to be connected to the monorail.
So we are improving, but
Yeah.
there's so much more that needs to be
Yeah.
done. And we are talking mostly about Klang Valley. What about places like JB? What about Penang? These
Yeah.
urban centers who we have about 6 million people, up to 6 million people living in the cities right now. And in about, 20 years time, we'll have about 60% of the population living
Yes.
in cities. I want to talk a bit about the urban sprawl. And in regards to that, how are we building our cities? Are we building it to sustainable and efficient in line with the transportation system that we have? That I'll let you answer, but we have to go for the last commercial break. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. On Vantage Point, and Dato Suhaili earlier were talking about transport-oriented model. Are we integrating public transportation into sustainable urban planning? And if so, what are some of the projects?
Yeah, again, it's a very valid concern. If you look around at major cities in the world with a very high population density, they always plan their development well in advance, and they ensure that the integration with the overall ecosystem is comprehensive enough, so that there are no major regrets or major rework that's to be done. So if you talk about a city like Hong Kong, this is one of the very good example on TOD, transit-oriented development, whereby all the residential projects are built around the transportation hub, so that people do not have to even own or drive to work, so they can live very near the transportation hub and go to work, or even go to shopping, visit relatives using the transportation network. So you can see a lot of that happening in Hong Kong, and to a large extent in Singapore, because don't forget, Singapore planned for the MRT back in 1967, and it came into service in 1989, some 22 years after they started planning. So coming back to our decision, it's quite difficult to give probably many examples of that in KL. I think the one that I can think of is KL Central, where we have the opportunity to put in some good ideas into what we want KL Central to be, on the back of KTM being an anchor tenant there, because the old KL rail station is already there, and we plan it in such a way that we have KTM commuter, we have LRT coming there, and the only regret that we have is that we didn't manage to put monorail station at KL Central, but instead we had it about 300 meters away, which we connected by the pedestrian footpath. So urban sprawl is a major issue in most growing cities in the world. If you don't address it, it creates other social problems.
So are we looking towards smaller communities built further out of the city?
Yeah.
Is that in line with
it is very much in our mind. So that's the reason why if you go to the latest project that we have, the MRT Mass Rapid Transit, it is running from Sungai Buloh all the way to Kajang, passing through the city centre, total distance of 50
and
kilometers.
we get other stakeholders, for example, property developers who are mostly concentrated within Klang Valley because the prices is highest in Klang Valley. And in regards to that, how are you working across multiple sectors so that everyone is in line to make sustainable living actually a possibility and in Klang Valley? Yeah,
it is a chicken and egg situation. Property developers, they want the transportation providers to provide a very reliable, good service, dependable, comfortable, with good connectivity, so that they can attract buyers and residents to stay there. But on the other hand, it costs the transport company to provide service across all the major urban sprawls in Klang Valley. So that's very costly. Then you have to prioritize. Like anything in life, you must prioritize, because if you try to do everything in life, you end up being master of none. So coming back to the MRT, you can see that at the northern hub, Sungai Buloh, there's a big piece of land there owned now by the EPF, and the developer is Kuasa Land. So that is going to be developed into a new what I call a township based on TOD, because the MRT station will be there, the MRT depot will be there. You know? So that's a very good example. But this happened because the land is available. If that place already fully built up, it's a brownfield, you can't do it. You know?
Let me give an example of Putrajaya and Cyberjaya, vast land area, but they are still lacking in terms of connectivity to.
Okay, in fact, we have addressed that. To be fair, it's just the supply demand doesn't match. In fact, there is a shuttle service between Putrajaya and what it calls Cyberjaya. The buses that provide the service in Putrajaya, Nadiputra, they have the capacity, they have the fleet, they have the drivers, but the numbers still not there. The thing about Cyberjaya, the demand is cyclical in the sense there's a high demand early morning when people want to leave and go to work, and there's none after 9:30. Then the next crowd comes after 4. No? So then you would want to have a service at peak hours rather than off peak. So I think that is being taken care of. But I don't think it's feasible or even viable to consider connecting Cyberjaya Putrajaya with rail-based transport system now, because it just doesn't.
A lot of foresight planning, and we are looking not only 5 years but 20, 30 years down the road. And regarding that GTP 2.0, what can we expect in this NKRA?
Basically, GTP 2 will comprise of continuation of the GTP 1 projects, and a lot of them are valid.
Areas you'll be emphasizing on?
Plus new areas.
Because previously it was MRT, right?
So in fact, just to correct you, MRT is not under NKRA.
Okay.
MRT is under Greater KL NKEA, but because it affects public transport, that's one of the reasons why I've been given both portfolios, urban transport and Greater KL. So I can look after both. But the new things that we are doing in GTP 2, for example, are taxis. I mentioned it briefly at the beginning. So we're going to develop a new centralized taxi service system, so that what I call people can access taxi, and owners or drivers don't have to waste time flying around the road looking for passengers. And then we also will have launch this journey planner. This is something that you get in major cities like London, whereby if you are coming to the city for the first time and you want to use public transport, you want a quick answer on what is the most reliable, cost-effective, shortest journey time from point A to point B. If you don't have a journey planner, you will be talking to 3 7-Eleven shops, cashier, for the direction, for the cost.
And you might never get it.
And if you're lucky, you get some answers. If you're unlucky, the answers won't be correct. So we are developing that, and it should be rolled out next year in 2013. These are some of the new ideas, and of course, we are also looking at feasibility of putting up a bus rapid transit project along, say, 3 corridors in Klang Valley, for example, the Federal Highway, Jalan Puchong to KL, and Taman Melawati to KL. Okay. And bus rapid transit is a very cost-effective public transport system, whereby you provide a dedicated right-of-way either at the side of the road or at the middle of a road, wide road. I mean, I'm talking about a 6-lane or 8-lane highway dedicated for buses that at peak hours will be coming in at every 60 seconds or 60 seconds, so you have the flow and people can move freely.
But all in all, we still need the numbers, the people, and if people do not feel confident that I can take the bus and the train to work and get there on time, then it is an issue. So my last question for you, because we are running out of time here, what are we doing to help change the perception among the people?
Yes, this is basically attitude, and I mean the bus operator really have to demonstrate that they can provide comfort, connectivity, very good access when using public transport, and they are doing a lot. And in terms of buses, for example, I mentioned about the new buses that have been added last year. They are going to provide at key bus stations in cities, in the city, the route map and the bus timetable or the schedule. One of the common complaints from the members of the public is that when they go to a bus stop, they don't know when the bus is going to turn up. So with the bus timetable, then you know if you go there at 12 and you see the timetable that says Shah Alam to KL is at 12:25, so you don't have to wait that long. But if there's no timetable, you won't know whether the bus is going to come or at what time.
And also we also need that enforcement to make sure that the bus actually arrives on time.
Yes, and one of the things SPAD will be doing is that the buses in Klang Valley eventually will be fitted with GPS. So from their depots, their control room, they'll be monitored which route they're using. So if they were to divert into an unauthorized route, they'll be violating the license condition, and they'll be penalized for that. So not only that, in terms of their travel path, they will also be recorded in terms of journey time. So then we can plan better, so that from the depot to this bus stop or this terminal is 75 minutes. If it takes 98 minutes, something is not right, unless there's a major accident along the road. So all these initiatives are being planned, and it will be rolled out from 2013 onwards under the GTP 2.0.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show to talk about this. And
welcome.
Thank you for watching Vantage Point. And if you have any questions or feedback, please do get in touch with us on Twitter or Facebook, or you can email me at cynthia_ng@astro.com.my. That's all for this episode. We'll see you again. Goodbye.
Thank you.